StudyIQ IAS, आपका सिलेक्शन हमारा मिशन.
Now, if you look at these 6 steps to humanness, these 6 steps which are actually instrumental, or they were more important developments which helped us in becoming the humans that we are today. I've already told you. The first one was, of course, the bipedalism, which had far-reaching consequences on the idea that how we became the humans that we are today. Bipedalism was actually one of the most important developments that happened, and I already told you in the last class that what would have necessitated the development of bipedalism, right? If we compare bipedalism as a locomotion strategy, why exactly are we more focused upon this idea of locomotion? Why locomotion becomes so important? See, in this section, I'll not dictate the notes. Mostly it is a very straightforward handout. In this, you have all the content that is required. So what exactly might have facilitated the emergence of locomotion? Emergence of this kind of locomotion. Locomotion is actually a strategy that is adopted by almost all the animals which move from one place to another place to actually get what? Food. And food is one of the primary requirements. To escape the predators is another primary requirement. Yes or no? So you have to get food, you have to survive till your reproductive age and produce what? Viable offspring. This is a species-related goal that every individual has on this planet. Humans, if you see, it is the same goal that humans also have. So monkeys could do it by using which kind of locomotion? Arboreal quadrupedalism. If you look at the apes would do what kind of locomotion? But which kind of? Was it arboreal? It was terrestrial quadrupedalism. It was terrestrial quadrupedalism. And then what kind of other locomotion did the apes do? Suspensory locomotion. I told you they swing from the trees, the lesser apes. Most of them have elongated forelimbs. Why? Because it is a way through which they could suspend to the branches of the trees. Through this, they could actually suspend to what? The branches of the trees, right? So they had suspensory locomotion. While if you look at humans, they are purely bipedal. Sometimes they can go and climb the tree, but that will not do any justice to them. Only they would climb the tree to get some things. Now you see, when you actually have to climb the tree, your palms are good enough to grasp anything. If you see our hand with some of the other mammals, for example, you see dogs, this portion. The dogs cannot grasp. But if you look at humans, humans can actually grasp. Not just humans, other apes can also grasp. They have grasping digits. Digits meaning these fingers are called as digits. So the apes, including humans, they have what? Grasping digits, which is used for having a grip, which is there. Right? But if you look at the apes, both of their hands and their feet, both of them are like this only. Both of them are grasping. If you see your feet cannot grasp things. क्या अपने पैर से आप बॉल पकड़ सकते हो? बहुत मुश्किल से ऐसे टेढ़ा मेढ़ा करके बॉल पकड़ते हो अंगूठे से, पकड़ नहीं सकते हो. You cannot grasp a thing. Agree? But with your hands you can actually grasp. Right? If you see your hand, it has dermal ridges, which actually increases our sense of touching. It is provided us the capability of touching anything. For example, you go and see a fruit hanging from the tree. You would find that, okay, is it ripe or is it raw or is it good enough to eat my food? Yes or no? So this is a very important development that happened in our hands. But if you look at humans, only their hands are grasping, their feet are not grasping. And that is why it becomes really difficult for us to climb a tree. We might grasp something, but our feet will not help us in climbing a tree. Some people are able to do it if they're able to create some kind of friction there, or they are able to rest their feet on a particular kind of thing that is there on the tree. Yes or no? This is a very clear thing that we observe most of the times. Right? So what you see here is bipedalism emerged because of certain requirements of those times. Maybe it was to get food, or maybe it was to save themselves from the predators, or whatever. Because the food was not easily available in the sparse landscape of the African region at that point of time. It might have also been facilitated by what? Some kind of climate change that might have happened in those times. So all of these features, all of these events eventually led to what? Birth of bipedalism in the human beings. And bipedalism was seen as by far the most important one. I already told you, bipedalism is not exclusively available only to the humans, or was not exclusively available to the humans. Actually, there were certain other species which also were bipedal in nature. And they were intermediate between the apes and the humans. Like I told you, humans and chimpanzees are what? Cousins. Why cousins? Because they have originated from some common ancestor in the past. Humans have not originated from the present living apes. जो आज के apes हैं उनसे हम originate नहीं हुए हैं. ये apes actually हमारे cousins हैं. There might have been an ape-like creature from whom both humans and chimpanzees have evolved. There might have been some common ancestor which might have been ape-like, from whom one branch led to what? The emergence of the modern day chimpanzees, and another one led to what? Humans. So when this new branch emerged, maybe the individuals at this point might have developed what? Bipedalism. They might have led to what? They might have seen the emergence of bipedalism as a phenomenon, that is the possibility of walking on two limbs. That was the idea. Fair enough. Then emerged the first human species, which is called as what? Homo habilis. And eventually Erectus, Neanderthal, and then we have what? The modern humans that we have. So we call it anatomically modern humans, right? कुछ लोग इनको Homo sapiens भी बोलते हैं. Terms are interchangeably used. Anatomically modern humans and Homo sapiens. Both these terms are used clearly. Is it clear to everyone? So first step was bipedalism. What did bipedalism do? Bipedalism actually freed the forelimbs. When it freed the forelimbs, structures, the anatomy of our hand also kept on changing. It provided us the ability to power grip, precision grip. Power grip and precision grip, which eventually enabled us to have what? The ability to make tools, right? So another change that was happening simultaneously with bipedalism was, what change was happening? Non-honing chewing complex. What was it? Non-honing chewing complex. What exactly does it mean? What does it mean? Canine got shortened. Canine is not getting sharpened against the third premolar in the lower jaw. Canine is not getting sharpened. ये हर बार sharp नहीं हो रहा. Why was the canine elongated in the apes? Why? Because it was used for shredding. It produced a shear force which could shred the difficult kind of cellulose which is available in the plant food that they were relying upon. It was also a sign of sexual dimorphism, because some of the male members in the apes had what? Elongated canines to scare some of the other competitors which were there. But anyways, elongated canine had a very different kind of role in the apes. In humans, it got reduced. At the same time, diastema, which was a gap in which the elongated canine would fit, also started to narrow down. Getting my point? And chewing is also very important. Chewing signals what? Chewing signals the kind of food that might have been eaten by the particular animal. If let's say you find a fossil tomorrow, fossils are mostly you're going to find what? Bones and teeth. You find bones, and if you see the bones fit for bipedal locomotion, you can say, okay, bipedalism is present. Because the structure would tell you something. How exactly does that bone of the leg fit into the pelvic area is going to help you understand that was it a quadrupedal animal or was it a bipedal animal. At the same time, by looking at their dental structure, you're going to find what kind of food they consume. Just for example, in the modern humans, you might find a very peculiar phenomena which is called as malocclusion. अब देखोगे बच्चे ब्रेसेस लगाते हैं, दांत क्योंकि आगे इकट्ठे हो जाते हैं, होता है, दांत आगे एक साथ क्राउडिंग हो जाती है दांतों की. Why does it happen? Because the jaws have become weaker because of over reliance on softer foods. because of over-reliance on softer foods. And from when did we start eating soft food? Primarily from the period when we started agriculture. Almost 10,000 years ago, this process started. Agriculture has changed the human anatomy like anything. The hunter-gatherers before agriculture had a very different kind of anatomy. The average heights have dropped, right? The skull has become more gracile. The masticatory complex has become more gracile. मतलब और soft हो गया ये वाला part. So, getting the point? Is it a clear sign or not? So you would see the changes in the skull area, and I already told you what is the correlation. Broadly, the correlation is, if you look at the human faces, human face is flat. It is mostly flat. But if you look at the face of an ape, it is like this. This is their teeth. Right? And what is this protrusion called as? क्या बोलते हैं इसको? अभी तो पहली टर्म सुनने लगा, अभी इतनी टर्म इकट्ठी हो जाएगी लास्ट तक की हालत खराब हो जाएगी. याद करना शुरू कर दो. क्या बोलते हैं प्रभु? नहीं पता. क्लास करी थी कल वाली? क्यों? तो ऑनलाइन देख लेते सोते सोते ऐसे. बुखार था. It is called as prognathism. It is called as prognathism. Right? And this highlights that over a period of time, the softer foods are being eaten, which simply means they are processing their food. Some changes will happen in terms of the kind of food that they are eating. It is definitely one of the reasons. Yes, softer food means the jaws are not being deployed much. Right? So this also tells us a lot about what kind of food was available. And I already keep telling you that natural selection highlights what? What kind of food is available? Will this individual survive till the reproductive age and produce viable offspring? And food is a factor of what? Climate and environment or a habitat. Food is a factor that is governed by what? The climate or the environment, as well as maybe some predator. As well as some predator, yes or no? For example, there is one theory which says that Neanderthals and humans competed in the same habitat, which is Europe. And humans were far more flexible. And that is why humans could survive in those circumstances and Neanderthal could not. On an average, the Neanderthal's brain size was far more bigger as compared to the modern humans. Even then, it could not survive. Why? Because the calories consumed by the Neanderthals were far more as compared to the modern humans. But the problem with Neanderthals is, even if they had bigger brain size, does not necessarily mean they were more intelligent than us. Brain size is just a simple trend that we see. The increase in the brain size is just a simple trend that we see. Right? But it is actually what? What are the important components of the brain that decide if you are intelligent or not? If the area related to cognition, is it more developed? That is going to decide if you are an intelligent species or not. Intelligence simply means, intelligence is a notion that we have attached to the idea of superiority, but the intelligence simply means you have better cognitive capabilities. Intelligence is simply a reflection of your learning capability. Do you biologically possess the learning capability or not? All the humans equally possess a similar kind of capability. But problem is, everybody could not be subjected to similar kind of social learning and environment, and that is why everyone's outcomes are very different. सब में दिमाग भगवान ने बराबर दिया है. भगवान ने क्या मतलब? एवोल्यूशन ने. फिर वही बात, डार्विन ने इसी को तो काउंटर किया था. है? Biologically, our genes are designed to learn. What will we learn? How much will we be able to learn? Is decided upon, depends upon what? Where we are born, what are our own experiences. And problem is, everyone's experience cannot be the same, even if you are born in the same culture. ठीक बात है? It's a clear reflection or not? So what we see here is bipedalism, non-honing, chewing complex was a very important development. What was the next important development? hyoid bone. What does hyoid bone do? क्या करता है guys hyoid bone? It is symbolic of what? The speech capability. It fits the larynx into it. Right? But it is also not a conclusive proof of the ability to speak. It's just an indirect proof of the ability to speak. For example, Neanderthals also have the presence of hyoid bone. But did they speak or not? We don't have any evidence for that. There are further indirect evidences which suggest that maybe they had some kind of ability to speak. Some people say that Neanderthals made sounds like a child, but they did not have the clear development of an articulate speech, and maybe this might have helped the humans to survive in those conditions. Because when you have the language, you have the capability of cooperating also. For example, the protest that you see at the Jantar Mantar right now. Can chimpanzees conduct such kind of protest? 200 से ज्यादा इकट्ठे नहीं हो पाएंगे. हाँ, सिविल वॉर हुई थी अभी एक चिंपैंजीज के बीच में. फर्स्ट रिकॉर्डेड सिविल वॉर इन चिंपैंजीज. हाँ, तुम देखना जाके इंटरनेट पे. तो दे हैव अ क्लियर कट सोशल सेटअप. डिफरेंस अगर आप देखो ह्यूमंस की सोशल लाइफ में और चिंपैंजीज की सोशल लाइफ में, what is the basic difference between the human social life and the social life of chimpanzees? फिर वही बात है. सिविलाइज का क्या मतलब है? चिंपैंजी के हम ज्यादा सिविलाइज हैं. Culture is definitely. See, if you see the idea of social group making, if you see the chimpanzees group, it cannot be more than 150 members. Humans, 1.5 billion people consider that they are part of the same group, which is India. 1.6 billion people feel that they are part of what? China. है नहीं? The human beings do cooperate in a very different fashion. Apes cooperate in a very different fashion. For ape to cooperate with somebody, he has to have a personal connection with that. Either the ape need to have sexual relationship with the females there which are present in the group, or the ape should know that other ape personally. Personally जानना बहुत जरूरी है. और वो कनेक्शन बनाने के लिए वो एक्चुअली एक काम करते हैं, इसको बोलते हैं ग्रूमिंग. आपने देखा होगा बंदर के बैठे बैठे एक दूसरे की जून निकालते रहते हैं, लाइस निकालते रहते हैं. लाइस का भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है, बताऊंगा बाद में. करते हैं बंदर, एक दूसरे के निकालते रहते हैं, कुछ खा जाते हैं उसको, प्रोटीन ले लेते हैं उसमें से. एंथ्रोपोलॉजी इज ग्रोस, वेरी ग्रोस. जितने लोग अनकंफर्टेबल इन चीजों से, वो सारी चीजें आपको क्लियर हो जाएगी. एक टाइम लगेगा अरे इनको इस पर्सपेक्टिव से देखना था क्या. ऐसी जितनी भी गंदी गंदी चीजें सारी हमें यहाँ सीखनी है, और हमें लगेगा कि गंदी नहीं है, एक्चुअल में सही चीजें हैं. ह्यूमन बॉडी पे जो लाइस है उसका भी इवोल्यूशन हुआ है हमारे साथ में, इसको बोलते हैं को इवोल्यूशन. जो जू है हमारे शरीर पे, उसका भी इवोल्यूशन हुआ है, और उसको पढ़ के हमने पता किया कि हमारे साथ में थे या नहीं थे दोनों. What exactly was the role played by both of them in the evolution? ठीक है. So when they groom each other, they actually build a bond. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल आप जाके अपने दोस्त के गले नहीं मिलते हो, हाथ क्यों मिलाते हो? भारतीय परिवार में क्यों लोगों में डिस्टेंस रहता है, दूर से नमस्कार, वो बॉन्ड नहीं बन पाता है बात की नहीं. मोदी जी क्यों जाके पकड़ लेते हैं ट्रंप को, गले मिल, दूर का भाग रहा है मुझसे. बॉन्ड बनाते हैं, वो उनकी पर्सनल बॉन्डिंग है कि नहीं बात. So you see what this is a way through which they develop the social bonds, right? While how do the humans create bonds? Humans also have this primitive urge, or this primate urge of grooming each other, touching each other. This is how they develop a bond. Yes or no? Parents, they keep grooming their child, and that is the most important bond that exists. Yes or no? People who become marital partners, they know the importance of that thing. Right or wrong? It develops a very stronger bond as compared to any other bond that exists. But besides that, humans have a very important capability of being a part of group and bonding. That is through what? Through language, through story. Human beings can actually create myths and stories around which they can create a bond. Language has made it possible for us to create such stories, abstract stories, through which we can bond. Right? For example, what is India? If you look at it at a very anthropological level, you will find it's just a story. What is your religion? It is just a story. You believed it. है बात की नहीं है इंडिया एक स्टोरी है, वो स्टोरी हमें बार बार याद दिलानी पड़ती है 15 अगस्त को, 26 जनवरी को, फ्लैग दिखा के, जनगण मन गवा के, टैबलूज निकाल के, ये हमारे यहाँ का कल्चर है. This is a fact or not? Is it easily understandable or not? Yes. So you see what humans create stories. For example, why all of us agree that if I give you a note and in exchange I want something, you might be willing to give me that. Why? Because we all believe in that piece of paper that it has value. भाई क्या वैल्यू रियल उस कागज की? कोई वैल्यू नहीं, कागज है वो, like any other paper. Why does gold have value? गोल्ड में क्या है ऐसा? मेटल ही तो है. प्रीशियस किस बात से है? हमने प्रीशियस बनाया है. रेयर तो और बहुत सारे हैं, रेयर अर्थ मेटल और रेयर है, फिर भी गोल्ड गोल्ड है. गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? गोल्ड की बाकी इनहेरेंटली कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. डायमंड की क्या वैल्यू है कि लोग बहुत साइंस के दीवाने हैं कि यार इतने प्रेशर के अंदर कोयला सोना बन जाता, गजब बात हो गई. कौन इस बात से कर रहा है? Everything that glitters is not gold. So it is a story. It is a story that people believe in, and that is why gold is gold, and no other metal is that equivalent to that metal. अब और कोई भी मेटल ले आओ, लेकिन फिर भी आप उसको वो उस नजर से नहीं देख पाओगे. आपके दिमाग में फिट है वो बात. Right? It's a commonly accepted norm, right? So humans cooperate through what? Such kind of stories which are there. Best proof of this is what? Tribal social organization. Tribals believe that they are part of the same clan which has a symbol which is called as totem, and the totem is what? A plant, tree, a bird, an animal. Otherwise, how is it possible that the humans are actually descendants of a tree? Fair point? So speech played a very instrumental role. The hyoid bone and its position in the throat actually decided the ability to make sounds, and that eventually converted into what? Something called a speech. Language played a very important role. So one is bipedalism. It had so many sequential changes. Actually, bipedalism was so important that it has transformed everything for humans. What exactly did it transform? If you see bipedalism transformed a lot of things in the human anatomy. What are those changes? If you see our feet structure changed. We started having an erect posture over a period of time. Human brain size increased considerably. Bipedalism changed the structure of our vertebral column. And one of the biggest change that was happening was, with bipedalism, we started standing erect. At the same time, the brain size also kept on increasing. But one of the problem was how to give birth to a child or an individual who is such big in size, who has a fully developed brain. If that was the case, the females would have died. Why? Because the birth canal opening kept on shrinking. It was a compromise in the anatomy. So what was the trade-off? Trade-off was that the human babies will be born immature. Human baby, when it is born, it is the most immature as compared to any other animal on this planet. बाकी सबके बच्चे पैदा होते ही चलने लग जाता है और तुरंत एक फुल्ली ग्रोन अप इंडिविजुअल में कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं वेरी सून. ह्यूमंस कुछ 18 साल बाकी जीवन भर इमैच्योर। बायोलॉजिकली बोला गया 17-18 साल, उसके बाद फिर आपका अपना है कि नहीं। आप 50 साल के हो जाओगे, मम्मी बोली पागल है, तो वो हो सकता है। ठीक है, इज इट अ पॉइंट और नॉट? So what you see here, that actually the compromise was that the human babies are going to be born immature, and it was one of the biggest things for mankind. Because of this long dependency of the child on the mother for such a long period of time, the learning capability of the human child is extremely higher as compared to any other animal on this planet. Why do we have increased learning capability? Because this developmental phase right after the birth, till an individual becomes a fully grown up human, that is the time when the child learns the most. आप सोचो कि child is a wonder in himself or herself. When they are born, from that time till 7-8 years of age, you might see they learn so quickly. They imitate things, they repeat things again and again, they play with things, they fall down, they get up, they learn so many things, they learn by playing. Or human learning is actually by playing only. If you stop playing, you'll never be able to learn. क्यों बड़ा है? आते हैं लाइफ स्पैन पे. So if you see, how do the children learn? Actually, we should also be learning something from them. That how exactly are they learning? What is their learning process? Children would observe carefully. They would imitate. Imitation actually helps us. Revision क्या है? बार बार एक ही काम करो, सीख जाओगे. Be playful. जहां सीरियस हुए गेम गड़बड़ हो गया. सच है. तुम कोई चीज बहुत सीरियसली सीखने की कोशिश करो तो कभी लर्न ही नहीं कर पाओगे ढंग से. बट द मोमेंट यू स्टार्ट प्लेइंग विद अ थिंग, और प्लेइंग हमारी क्यों रेस्ट्रिक्ट हो जाती है? क्योंकि हमें तो ये सिखा दिया जाता है सोशल लर्निंग कि फेल नहीं होना है, और प्लेइंग का मतलब फेल तो होना ही है इसमें. फेलिंग इज इंटीग्रल पार्ट. कीप एक्सपेरिमेंटिंग, कीप प्लेइंग विद द थिंग्स एंड यू लर्न अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. है बात की नहीं है. इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट. प्लेइंग का मतलब ये नहीं है कि मतलब बिल्कुल ही खैर हंसी मजाक चल रहा हो, लेकिन माय पॉइंट इज, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल यू हैव स्टडीड समथिंग, नाउ यू प्ले विद दैट टॉपिक, कि इसको जाके देखा, कुछ यूट्यूब वीडियो देखा, फिर जाके लिखा उसको, फिर उसी को कुछ आपने सोचा कि इनोवेटिव एक काम करता हूँ, मैच द कॉलम बना के देखता हूँ, या इसी का मैं एक टेबल बना के देखता हूँ, इसी कुछ क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करके देखता हूँ. इट इज एक्चुअली एंगेजिंग विद दैट कंटेंट. एंड व्हेन आई आस्क यू टू राइट दोस प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस बाय लुकिंग इनटू द नोट्स, इट इज एक्चुअली व्हाट? प्लेइंग विद दैट कंटेंट. Because that is when you are engaging more. So if you remove this hurdle of what? Focusing upon playing or engaging with things, it will become a very important way of learning for you. Right? So first is bipedalism. Bipedalism has had so many long-term changes. All of these we are going to see. Right? If there is a specific question that is asked in the physical geography, that what were the consequences of bipedalism? What were the consequences of bipedalism? Or costs of bipedalism? Cost of erect posture. What were the costs that human body bore? क्या हमें नुकसान हुआ इसका? ह्यूमन बॉडी में कुछ डिजीजेस होते हैं, वो सिर्फ इसीलिए होते हैं कि हम बाइपेडल हैं. इंसान के घुटने बोल जाते हैं बहुत जल्दी. बाकी जानवर घुटने नहीं दुखते हैं ऐसे कुछ. हमारे वाले होते हैं मम्मी पकड़े बैठ जाती हैं, घुटने दुख गए. Right? Joint related issues are actually a result of that. Varicose vein, if you keep standing for a long period of time. टीचर्स को सबको होता है लास्ट में जाके, इसलिए मैं बैठ जाता हूं. है कि नहीं है? The labor pain. Right? And if you see, human neck is the most fragile. थोड़ा नीचे देखने लगा, लगता है अरे यार दर्द क्यों लग गया. A point, there is this cost of humans have this called as osteoarthritis. If human body does not work much, so your bones are going to become weaker. Okay, so bipedalism is one of the broadest topic that we are going to study over a course of discussion in the next classes. Okay? Chewing complex will also keep on recurring again and again. कि इसके दांत ऐसे थे, इसके इतने मोलर थे, इसके इतने प्रीमोलर थे, इसमें ये चेंज हुआ. So maybe he might have eaten this kind of food. Right? And linguistic about how the language originated, that is one part of it, right? Then at the same time, what did we do? Next important development, tool making. First tools emerged about, right, associated with whom? Homo habilis. Tool making emerged with the Homo habilis. Then we started developing what is called as hunting, which is what? Which is cooperative behavior. And then eventually we developed agriculture. Everything changes from there. Everything changes from there. So if you go through this handout, 6 steps to humanness. First, human beings clearly differ from the other animals. From humanity's earliest origins about 6 million years ago, when an ape-like primate meaning the one primate from which one branch led to the chimpanzees eventually. There might have been many subsequent species from that ancestor which led to chimpanzees, which are modern day ones. Right? Another branch led to what? The modern humans. So it is what? It is what saying? 6 million years ago. ये term, ये number याद रखना है. और ये आगे भी reinforce होगा when we are going to actually draw the whole phylogeny tree of the primates. पूरा ancestral tree बनाएंगे जितनी भी species मिली उनका मिला के. ठीक है? So about 6 million years ago, when an ape-like primate began walking on what? 2 feet, because this was the time when bipedalism started to emerge in the subsequent species. First species to show a sign of bipedalism was Sahelanthropus canadensis. अभी चिंता नहीं करनी, बट याद हो जाएगा. Sahelanthropus canadensis. ठीक है? Then there was Aurorin tugenensis. Aurorin tugenensis, and then you have the whole family which is called as Australopithecines, and then you have humans. तो 3-4 ही हमें याद रखने हैं, बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है. 3-4 मतलब हैं थोड़े बहुत, लेकिन वो याद हो जाएंगे. Australopithecines, then humans. ठीक है? Australopithecines की कुछ सब स्पीशीज है 4-5, वो याद करनी होंगी. और उसके बाद में ह्यूमंस के होमो हबिलिस, इरेक्टस, निएंडरथल्स, हाइडेलबर्जेंसिस, देयर इवोल्यूशनरी कोरिलेशनशिप. एंड इट इज वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड. कुछ बदलता नहीं बहुत ज्यादा, अनलेस कोई नई स्पीशी मिल जाए और पूरी फाइलोजेनी रिवाइज करनी पड़े. थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू चेंज. ठीक है? और स्पीशीज रोज रोज नहीं मिलती हैं. हो सकता है 10-15 साल बाद फिर कोई मिले, फिर कुछ आइडिया लगे. सो दैट इज गोइंग टू चेंज ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, राइट? Then see, began walking on 2 feet about 6 million years ago to the period beginning about 10,000 years ago. Why 10,000 years is an important landmark? What happened 10,000 years ago? Neolithic revolution or agriculture. When modern climates and environment emerged following what is commonly known as the Ice Age, 6 key attributes developed that make us unique. Right? What is the term that we use for this Ice Age? Pleistocene. निएंडरथल्स को क्या बोलते हैं? ह्यूमंस. ह्यूमंस ही है निएंडरथल भी. इस तरह से इसलिए लिखते हैं उसको. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, शी इज सेइंग दैट इट इज रिटन एज इफ यू एंड दैट मैन. इसलिए लिखते हैं क्योंकि ऑफ कोर्स दे आर पार्ट ऑफ ऑल द ह्यूमन स्पीशीज. सम पीपल कंसिडर नियंडरथल्स एज अ डिस्टिंक्ट स्पीशीज ऑल टुगेदर, and some people see Neanderthal as an adaptation of the Homo sapiens in one particular area. है इसलिए there are two terms that are used: Homo sapiens Neanderthals, Homo sapiens sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens, Homo sapiens Neanderthals. ठीक है? Some people claim that they are of distinct species, but even then there is evidence that there might have been some interbreeding. तो देयर इज अ डिबेट दैट गोज ऑन कि आखिर हैं कौन, कहां फिट होते हैं आपस में, एक दूसरे का रिलेशन क्या है इनका. ठीक है, सो वी आर गोइंग टू लर्न दैट डिबेट, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. क्योंकि होमो सेपियंस सेपियंस प्रजाति के नहीं है, डिफरेंट है. तो देयर इज अ डिबेट दैट गोज ऑन, राइट? ठीक बात है. व्हाई प्लीस्टोसीन इज इंपॉर्टेंट? बिकॉज प्लीस्टोसीन चेंज द क्लाइमेट्स. ड्यू टू प्लीस्टोसीन, climate started to abruptly change. The ice age actually transformed things. And how does ice age transform the climates? What happens during an ice age? क्या होता क्या ice age में? कि आइस क्यूब्स आ जाते हैं, फिर उनको ग्लास में डालो और पी जाओ. क्या होता है आइस एज में? इस अभी हम जी रहे हैं, अभी इस टाइम पे क्या हो रहा है? इस टाइम पे क्लाइमेट वाइज क्या चल रहा है? ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रही है ना. क्यों चिंता हमें ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की? कि पोलर आइस कैप जो है मेल्ट हो जाएंगी, सी लेवल राइज हो जाएगा, कोस्टल एरियाज डूब जाएंगे, क्लाइमेटिक पैटर्न्स बदल जाएंगे बिकॉज ऑफ द राइज इन द सी लेवल एंड द मेल्टिंग ऑफ द पोलर आइस कैप्स. फ्लोरा एंड फाउना इज गोइंग टू चेंज. है? डार्विन से पूछोगे, बोलेगे तो नॉर्मल है, होता ही रहता है, कई सालों तो हो रहा है, तुम क्यों चिंता कर रहे हो? तो हमें तो चिंता इसलिए क्योंकि हम परेशान होते हैं, यार हमारा क्या होगा. होता है. So when ice age happens, what happens? During the ice age, most of the global water gets locked into the ice caps. Ice age में most of the water gets locked into what? The polar ice caps. Sea levels start to drop. Sea levels drop. ठीक है? सी लेवल के जो चेंजेस होते हैं उनको किस तरह का चेंजेस बोलते हैं हम लोग? What is the term we use for referring to these sea changes that we see quite often? जैसे when we say the earth's surface has never remained the same. Eustatic changes. Very good, Mahima. What is it called? Eustatic change. Sea changes वाला. EU. Eustatic. है? And when the surface of the earth keeps on changing, it is called as isostatic changes. Geography में होता है, अपने काम का नहीं, बस इतना ध्यान रखो हल्का सा. आ रहा है आनंद कि नहीं आ रहा है? खूब आ रहा है, बस थोड़ा थोड़ा आ रहा है? नहीं आ रहा? देखी नहीं होगी कल की क्लास? देख ली थी ना? देख लिया था तो फिर तो क्या है. हाँ भाई लोग, क्योंकि यहां पे इंसान की कहानी हम बोलते आ रहे हैं शुरू से, इट्स अ स्टोरी ऑफ द मैनकाइंड. Story of the mankind means what? It is going to tell you the full story, how things started, how climate was there, what exactly were the landforms, how exactly the food was available, what changes were happening, where this species originated from that time to this present time. चाय बन रही है. हाँ, इधर से एक खिड़की खुलवा देते हैं, इधर भी दे देना चाय. See, it will influence a whole lot of things. स्वयंभू, ये ऑनलाइन वाला तुमको पता नहीं है यार क्या दुख है ऑफलाइन में. ये पड़ोस के ऑफिस वाला चाय बना रहा है, उसकी आवाज यहां तक आ गई है. तुम्हें लग रहा है यहां चाय बन रही? हाँ, टाटा कैपिटल. सारा पैसा कंपनी ने लग रहा है एक्सेल शीट बनाने में खर्च कर दिया. इतने कोर्स डिजाइन किए हैं, उसमें इतने कंपोनेंट डाले हैं कि बस ये कर लेंगे. अरे हैं, चाय बनती है उस टाइम पे 3 बजती. रोज रोज थोड़ी रिपेयर करेगा वरना यार, रोज होता है ये. अदरक ही तो. एनीवेज, क्या डिस्कस कर रहे थे हम लोग? Ice Age, right? Isostatic changes and eustatic changes. So we saw that Ice Age was actually landmark. Pleistocene was replaced by Holocene. कब हुआ था? 10,000 years ago. So if you see the global temperatures in the Ice Age, they were lower, but in Holocene period they started to rise. They started to rise. They started to transform from this phase to this phase. From Ice Age to Holocene, warming began. Average global temperatures increased, meaning sea level rose, rainfall increased, new vegetation emerged. And one of the changes that you're going to see is, just isko dhyan rakhna, कि you might have heard in archaeology या ancient history पढ़ी होगी तो, प्री हिस्ट्री पढ़ी होगी तो, उसमें एक टर्म यूज करते हैं हम, पहले बोलते हैं पेलियोलिथिक. सिंपल है, सबने पढ़ी. इधर लिखते हैं पेलियोलिथिक. इसके 3 सब पार्ट्स होते हैं, लोअर पेलियोलिथिक, मिडिल पेलियोलिथिक और अपर पेलियोलिथिक, और एक होता है नियोलिथिक, और इन दोनों के बीच में एक होता है. तो मीजोलिथिक में क्या होता है? What exactly happens during this Mesolithic phase? Why do we even have this Mesolithic phase? What happens during the Mesolithic phase? What changes? अरे स्टोन तो लोअर पेलियोलिथिक का मतलब, लिथिक का मतलब ही स्टोन है भाई. लिथिक वर्ड का क्या मतलब है? स्टोन. तो लोअर पेलियोलिथिक में भी स्टोन है, मिडिल में भी स्टोन है, अपर में भी स्टोन है, नियो में भी स्टोन है. सोचा कभी ऐसे? पढ़ा तो होगा एंशिएंट हिस्ट्री में. बस बोला माइक्रोलिथ्स मिल गए, अर्ली मैन था उसने स्टोन टूल बना दिए, हो गया काम. श्रिंकिंग मेगाफाउना, एक्सपैंडिंग फॉरेस्ट, not domestication of animals. क्या? Neolithic में हुआ. See, exactly what happened is, Paleolithic में you were all doing hunting and gathering. Not you, मतलब हमारे पहले वाले. Hunting and gathering, everyone was doing hunting and gathering. Actually, for hunting and gathering, they were roaming around from one place to the other. But because of the changes that happened during the Holocene warming में क्या हुआ? During the Holocene warming, you saw a very important thing, which was that the biodiversity increased. जब temperature बढ़ता है तो क्या होता है? Biodiversity increased in the equatorial and the tropical regions, meaning there was more availability of newer kinds of plants and animals for food. क्या मिलने लगा इसकी वजह से? नए तरह के प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स मिलने लगे, right? And they were not just reliant upon only the bigger kind of animals which were called as megafauna. Megafauna started to retreat. This was a very big change, which led to what? Which led to a very important change which is called as बिगिनिंग ऑफ सेडेंटरिज्म, क्या बोलते हैं इसको अपन? Meaning for the first time humans started to settle down. Why? Because they were not required to move from one place to the other, because the food was easily available in their vicinity, क्योंकि diversity increase हो गई. New plants, so many animals are available, smaller in size, easily available. वो खाने लग गए उनको. जाते थे मार मरा के और एक जगह आके रख जाते थे. सेडेंटरिज्म. पेड़ गए, गैदरिंग करके लिया, खा लिया. है? Because the diversity was such broad and still they were collecting, it was referred to as, by a very important term which is called as broad spectrum collection. सब लिख दिया जिनको जो जो याद था. सेडेंटरिज्म एंड ब्रॉड स्पेक्ट्रम कलेक्शन. एक्चुअली अगर आप ये दो टर्म नहीं लिख के आओगे मेसोलिथिक में तो सारे नंबर का मतलब ही नहीं खत्म हो गया. फिर माइक्रोलिथ लिखाओ, सब लिखाओ. सुना ये? एंशिएंट स्ट्रीम नहीं पढ़ाते हैं? ट्रांजिशनल क्या? ट्रांजिशनल क्या है? क्या मतलब ट्रांजिशनल का? है? And then sedentism continued. We did what? We started domesticating the plants and the animals. Meaning, with this began what we call as the agriculture. Agriculture led to the birth of what kind of societies? सोचो जरा, दिमाग डालो. ये ब्रेन हमें दिया इतना सारा, इसको यूज करना जरूरी है. जंग लग जाती है. एग्रेरियन को क्या बोलते हैं? क्या होती है एग्रेरियन सोसाइटीज? सोचो, तुम सब जानते हो. अभी बोलूंगा तो सब शर्मा जाओगे एकदम से और घिन आएगी खुद से कि इतनी सी बात नहीं याद कर पाए. रूरल गांव. हमारे कॉलेज में रैगिंग होती थी, तो रैगिंग के अंदर जब कोई गलत जवाब देता था तो खुद ही खुद को मारना होता था. स्लैप. और स्लैप का काउंट हमेशा 0 होता था. क्यों 0 होता था? क्योंकि इधर से आपने मारा, फिर इधर से आप फिर मारोगे, बैलेंस कर दो. केमिकल इक्वेशन बैलेंस होनी चाहिए ना. मुझे लग रहा है ये रूल मुझे लाना पड़ेगा क्लास में, कि जब मैं पूछूं तब सेल्फ स्लैपिंग चालू करनी पड़ेगी, ताकि अपने आप याद रहेगा. ऑनलाइन वालों को देख नहीं सकते. होता है? करवाना पड़ेगा तभी याद रहेगा. एग्रीकल्चर सब चिल्ला रहे हैं एग्रेरियन. भाई रूरल गांव की क्या पहचान है? खेती होती है और कोई पहचान नहीं गांव की. है नहीं है? हम अपने आप को शहर क्यों बोल रहे हैं? क्योंकि हम खेती नहीं करते. सिंपल सोचो. Why Indus Valley civilization was called as urban civilization? There were settlements which did not do agriculture. Simply imagine anybody around you, just see yourself. कौन घर जाके खेती करेगा आज शाम में? कोई नहीं करेगा. सब यहाँ पढ़ने आते हैं, नौकरी करते हैं, कोई कुछ करता है. सब अर्बन है. Elites live in the urban areas. है बात नहीं? ऑनलाइन वालों के लिए भी इलाज है, चिंता मत करो तुम. ऑफलाइन ऑनलाइन. एक हमारा फ्रेंड था, तो क्या होता था, रैगिंग में कॉल लगती थी पूरे ग्रुप की. तो 10-11 लोग थे, उनको बुलाते थे सीनियर्स रूम पे. फिर वही कुछ चुटकुला सुनाओ, ये करो वो करो, कुछ कुछ करते थे रैगिंग में. फिर साथ में झापड़ पड़ती रहती थी. नॉर्मल था. खुद भी मारना है, कभी सीनियर मार देगा, कभी इंटर स्लैपिंग होती थी कि आपस में एक दूसरे को मारो, कुछ कुछ चलता रहता था. उसका वो पनिशमेंट होता था, और डेलिबरेटली डिजाइन करते था कि पनिशमेंट करना पड़े. ये मुझे लग रहा है लाइट गई है, बंद हो जाएगा. आवाज आ रही ऑनलाइन? आ रही है, ओके। तो एक बार कॉल लगी, सबको बुलाया, कोई पहुंचा नहीं। एक आदमी पहुंच गया, उसका नाम था मयूर जैन। मयूर जैन बेचारा बहुत डरपोक था, उसको बहुत डर लगता था रैगिंग से। जैसे कुछ लोगों को डर नहीं लगता, कुछ लोगों को बहुत डर लगता था। और रैगिंग खराब है, गलत है, मैं अभी फिर से डिस्क्लेमर दे दूं, मैं अप्रिशिएट नहीं करता हूं बिल्कुल भी, लेकिन इट वाज सो इंटरेस्टिंग। तो मयूर जैन को बहुत डर लगता था। मयूर जैन को इतना डर लगता था कि उससे कहा था कि चल मछली जल की रानी है वाली पोएम सुना दे। उससे वो नहीं निकली डर के मारे। उसने पोएम सुनाई, वो बोला मछली जल की रानी है, अंदर रहती जिंदा रहती, बाहर आती मर जाती है। उसने सीधा उसको समराइज कर दिया, चैट जीपीटी से उसने पोएम लिख दी। उसने कहा कौन इतना उल्टा सीधा गाएगा, जीवन उसका पानी है, हाथ लगाओ डर जाएगी, बाहर निकालो मर जाएगी। इतनी कहानी कौन सुनाएगा? जैसे ये बोला, चांटे ही चांटे। क्योंकि सिचुएशन इतनी प्रेशरफुल होती है कि आप नॉर्मल काम भी अजीब तरीके से करोगे, इतना टेंशन होता है वहां पे। ठीक है, तो कोई नहीं पहुंचा, मयूर जैन पहुंच गया वहां पे। अब क्या करना है? तो मयूर जैन को पूछा बाकी लोग कहाँ हैं? तो बोला बॉस आए नहीं। तुम्हारा एक फ्रेंड है जावेद, तो बोला जावेद कहाँ है? तो बोला बॉस नहीं आया। बोला सर बॉस उसी ने सबको मना करा था जाने के लिए, डर के मारे वो सारे भेद भी खोला है वहां पे। तो बोला एक काम करना, जाना और मेरी तरफ से एक चांटा लगाना जावेद को। ठीक है, बोल दिया। सीनियर नहीं बोलने के लिए बोला होगा। मयूर जैन निकला वहां से, जावेद को फोन किया, जावेद कहाँ है? तो बोला मैं यहाँ पे हूँ। तो बोला मुझे कुछ काम है, तेरे से मिलना है। बोला आ जा, यहाँ आ जा। तो बोला यार बॉस ने बोला एक चांटा लगाने के लिए। तो उसने बोला ठीक है, बोला होगा तो क्या हो गया? बोला नहीं नहीं यार मेरे को लगाना पड़ेगा। सीनियर रूम पे बैठा है, ये यहाँ हमारे हॉस्टल में है, और ये बोल रहा है कि मुझे चांटा लगाना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि वो इतना डर गया है। वो डरा हुआ आदमी तो बहुत ज्यादा। तो जावेद बोला तो पागल हो गया कि ये क्या बात कर रहा है, कि वो देख थोड़ी रहा है यहाँ पे। बोला नहीं नहीं भाई, मेरे दिल को शांति नहीं मिलेगी। उसने बोला कि अब क्या करना है इस सिचुएशन में? तो जावेद ने बोला तू हाथ लगा के दिखा, मैं तेरे को बताता हूँ क्या करेगा तू। तो उसने बोला भाई प्लीज बस मुझे सिर्फ गाल के हाथ लगाने दे ताकि मेरे दिल को शांति हो जाए कि मैंने चांटा लगा दी। तो ये कहानी है रैगिंग की, राइट? तो सी व्हाट, सो दीज वर इंटरेस्टिंग टाइम्स। मतलब उसमें बहुत ही अलग अलग अमेजिंग तरह की चीजें होती थी। मयूर जैन फिर एक और डरा हुआ आदमी था, तो वो घर से खाना लेके आता था बहुत सारा। उसके घर वाले बहुत केयरिंग थे बेचारे, डब्बे के डब्बे भर के लाते थे, और वो छुपाता भी था उसको, और फिर हम रेड मार के उसका सारा चरक खा जाते थे। फिर वो बहुत दुखी होता था। हमारी शक्ल देख के लग रहा होगा हम ऐसे काम तो करते ही थे, नॉर्मल सी बात है। नॉर्मल शक्ल वाला इंसान तो करता नहीं है सब, एथनोसेंट्रिक कहीं के सारे। एनीवेज, कम बैक, कहां थे हम? Then see, these attributes are first bipedalism, this tool use, speech, dependence on domestic foods. What is bipedalism? The first development represents the most profound physical difference between humans and other animals, namely the manner in which we get around. We are committed to bipedalism, that is walking on 2 feet, and what do we call it? Locomotion. It is called as what? Locomotion. Is it not? So there are different types of locomotions. For example, there are prosimians, lemurs, loris, tarsius. They move in a very different fashion. Vertical clinging, leaping, all of these are also ways of moving around. Getting my point? And then we have what? Bipedalism, of course, is the recent one. There is quadrupedalism, arboreal, terrestrial, suspensory, all sorts of terms are there. Just we need to know that locomotion simply means walking around. ये टर्म याद करते जाओ साथ साथ, भूलना नहीं, बाद में याद नहीं होने वाली है। और वहां पे लिखना है कि ये नहीं लिखना है कि ह्यूमंस मूव ऑन 2 feet। लोकोमोशन लिखो सीधा, बाइपेडलिज्म लोकोमोशन, ह्यूमन लोकोमोशन स्ट्रेटजीज बाइपेडलिज्म है। तो वी विल हैव टू यूज सच टर्म्स इन जार्गन व्हिच इज एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल। बहुत ओवरडू भी नहीं करना, लेकिन ब्रॉडली दीज टर्म्स हैव टू बी लर्न्ड। और ये सबसे लैंडमार्क है, तो ये तो याद करनी है, राइट? Then see what non-honing chewing canine. What exactly does it mean? I already told you. The next development was the loss of a large honing canine tooth. Honing meaning the one that gets sharpened against the lower premolar. Right? And broadly, because of shortening of the canine, the jaw also became small. Is it working now? Okay. चलिए 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 ठीक है. Then you see material culture. Today our species completely depend upon what? Culture. We depend upon culture. Culture is what? Everything that the humans have created. Actually, the beginning of the stone tool marks what? The beginning of the culture. Simply you see tools are what? Stones were altered for them to be used for some purpose. Anything is a tool if we use it for some end goal. उसी को हम टूल बोलते हैं, नहीं बोलते हैं? It's an instrument or a tool. So tool is something that could be used for achieving something or doing something. And for that matter, everything is a tool then. A house is a tool where we live. We construct that tool. A phone is a tool through which we talk. Or this is a pen through which we write. It is a tool. Yes? Everything that you see around yourself is a tool, and the good thing is humans have created those tools. God did not create phone. God did not create house. We created this. Yes, no? People online? ठीक है. ऑनलाइन वालों को नब्ज चेक करनी पड़ती थोड़ी थोड़ी देर में, जिंदा है कि नहीं. ठीक है, fine. So you see what stone tool making was actually what? The beginning of material culture. Everything that you see around yourself is what? Material. Right? And where have we reached today? By creating those materials, we are actually reaching where? Even Mars, Moon. Satellites are also our tools that we have created. Making stone tools was just the beginning. हमने टूल बनाया, वो शुरुआत थी बस. वहां से हम कहां पहुंच गए? We are altering the materials on the nano scale. And we are experimenting with new kinds of material. Everything has been a consequence of what? The beginning of this tool making. And what would an anthropologist see? Anthropologists would see that it was simply the beginning of bipedalism, changes in the forelimb, opposability of the thumb that enabled human beings to develop such huge material culture that is there. Where did it start from? How did it start? It actually started like this. Over a period of time, speech, language, cognition, abstract thinking led to the birth of non-material aspects of the culture. Commonly established norms, values, beliefs. All of these things were what? All of these things emerged later. Material culture emerged earlier. Non-material culture emerged later. But today, they're not isolated from each other. Both work hand in hand with each other. For example, if you consider this phone to be a part of material culture, but the steps involved in the design making, if in the making of this phone, if there is a design feature that is there, if it is written in any document, that is non-material culture. पूरे जो step by step process कहीं पे लिखा हुआ होगा, that is what? It is non-material culture. Because that is our body of knowledge. है नहीं है? So we have material culture, we have non-material culture. Right? And how did we get to know this thing? How did we, when we are born, see the beauty of this thing is, when a human is born, he does not have to start from the scratch. You see a cow or a dog or their children, they will always live the same lifestyle. Nothing much changes unless the dog is with the humans. तो फिर हम उसको टी शर्ट पहना देंगे, है नहीं? Otherwise, but humans start on a very different note. We are not going around hunting and gathering in the beginning, then experimenting with the stone tools to create fire, process food, and develop everything, and then start कि शुरू करूंगा. वो कहते हैं ना, मीम आता है ना इंस्टाग्राम पे, शुरू से होगा कम बैक, एबीसीडी पढ़ते हुए. उनको पता नहीं एबीसीडी इज नॉट शुरुआत. एबीसीडी केम वे लेटर. पहले स्टोन टूल बना. ठीक बात है. हर चीज को एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकली सोचना शुरू करो, चीजें काफी आसान हो जाएंगी. Got the point? So now you see here what happens. Material culture, all of these things we have learned by being born in particular societies. It is an accumulated body of knowledge that the humans have, which is very unique to the human beings, not found in any other animal. True. Just imagine yourself and you will get to know this thing. There's nothing unique about us, in the sense in which we were considering that God has created us special. No. We are just a result of the evolutionary process, nothing else. We are a result of what? The material process only. We are nothing else. We are not special in any sense. It is just our adaptation mechanism. It is our survival strategy. Right? And because it has been one of the successful survival strategy, human beings have proliferated across the planet. Why? Because their ability to cooperate in such large groups in such precise fashion, that has helped them in surviving in any circumstances. They have even created a strategy that they are going to go into the space where there is no atmosphere, there is no food. They will go and survive there for 150 days, 200 days sometimes. Only humans do that. So being human is a very different thing when we see it from an anthropological perspective. Okay? Material culture is there. All of you understanding this thing? So especially material culture for its day-to-day living and its very survival. Do you get it? And culture is what? Culture is something that we learn. Culture is the learned behavior. Culture is not something that is genetically embedded in our genes or DNA. What exactly is possessed by our DNA? DNA has the basic information that will make us human. That our brain size is going to grow to such a level. Our body is going to have a figure through which we are going to walk bipedally. Genes decide the potential of a species. What exactly will they achieve? What exactly will they learn is by the virtue of what? Being born in a society and how much you've learned about this thing. So for example, you are someone who can read, who can speak in English, who can speak a language, you can actually work in a multinational company, you are using iPads and laptops, and if there's a tribal person living in the forest area, is he backward in this sense? Is the tribal backward? Why? Because he was born in a society in which the body of knowledge was that. It was the only thing that was required for them to survive, and they survived. Right or wrong? Sometimes you might wonder कि लोगों को इतना पैसा क्यों चाहिए? होता कई बार ख्याल आता ना कि यार इतना ये 500,000 करोड़ क्या खा के करता है आदमी करप्शन में? और अमीर आदमी और अमीर क्यों बनना चाहता है? क्या प्रॉब्लम है? है कि नहीं फैक्ट? So you would find that actually it is a survival strategy of the people living in a society. They have created this narrative, they have created this story that you will only survive if you do this thing. Tribals have not created this story, they're still surviving. Why there is no end to human greed? वो greed हमने नाम दे दिया उसको, but वो actually survival strategy है. क्योंकि आफ्टर पॉइंट यू रियलाइज कि यार पैसा नहीं कमाएंगे तो बच नहीं पाएंगे. And even if you ask a person who has earned a lot कि इतने पैसे क्या करते हो, he will have no answers. यार खाना तो मैं भी वही खा रहा हूँ, ऐसा कुछ बहुत ठीक है, थोड़ा और मैं ऑर्गेनिक खा लूंगा, और क्या हो जाएगा. तुम 25 रुपए किलो वाला गेहूं खा रहे हो, मैं 60 रुपए वाला खा लेता हूँ, और क्या करना है. एक इंसान अगर खाने लगे बहुत पैसा भी खर्च कर देगा तो बहुत ज्यादा तो 50,000 रुपए ज्यादा नहीं खा सकता पूरे महीने में. महंगे से महंगा मंगा लो, वो आयन वाला पानी मंगवा लो, सब काम कर लो, इससे ज्यादा नहीं खा सकता. है पॉइंट या नहीं है. आप कभी भी देखो, सर्वाइवल के लिए हमें जिस तरह के टाइम में हम रह रहे हैं, खाने वाले जो मेन आइटम है वो 10-15 हजार रुपए ज्यादा नहीं खर्चा होगा किसी काम से. 15,000 ज्यादा बोल रहा हूँ मैं, परिवार चल जाता है उसमें. बाकी सारी जो सर्वाइवल स्ट्रेटजी है वो एक्चुअली कॉस्टली है, एंड देयर इज नो एंड टू इट. जब भी स्ट्रेस आए तो ये सोचना है कि हम हंटर गैदरर हैं. हम क्या है? हंटर गैदरर्स, है ना. जैसे हासिल मूवी का मैंने एक वीडियो भेजा था, याद हो किसी को. इरफान खान बोलता है तुम लोग गुरिल्ला हो, गुरिल्ला वार किया जाएगा. ठीक है ना. तो वी आर ऑल हंटर गैदरर्स. वी नीड नॉट वरी अबाउट वरी मच. इफ यू आर गेटिंग फूड दैट इज फेयर इनफ. गुरिल्ला नहीं हो तुम लोग, चिंपैंजी हो, उनके करीबी हो. Yes, got the point? Unnecessary, भाई जितने भी चीजें हमने बनाई है, we have actually created this norm. We have created certain standards that everybody should strive for this thing. That is why you praise certain things in the society and you want everyone to become like that. होता ना, कई बार लोग डिसएंचेंटेड हो जाते हैं कि मैं आखिर क्यों कर रहा हूं, इतना क्या करना है मुझे. So just sit back and realize that okay, this is a standard that has been set by the society. But it might not be the only way of surviving. Survival is a very simple strategy. और कभी कभी आप देखोगे, to earn a lot, it creates a lot of anxiety after a point of time. You would never feel secure. There is some unnecessary insecurity that always is there. है कि नहीं है? And if you keep doing things from that perspective, things are easy for you. जैसे when I got my first job after the UPSC वाला part पूरा, कॉलेज के बाद लग गई नौकरी, चले गए. When I quit that job, I used to earn 50,000 rupees. When I started preparing, 2011, 2010 में पास आउट, ग्रेजुएट हुए, जुलाई में जॉब लग गई, मई में पास हुए. एक साल तक नौकरी के, फिर लगा कुछ करना जीवन में, ये सब क्या है, वो इसमें को थोड़ी काम चलेगा, ये वो सब सोच के आ गए यूपीएससी में कि ये मैनेजर ऐसे कैसे बात कर सकती है मेरे से, इसको दिखा दूंगा आईएएस बन के. वो सब जो आप लोग सोच रहे होगे, सब सोचते हैं. लाइफ में कोई लफड़ा ही नहीं चाहिए, आईएएस बन जाऊंगा, सब प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व. मैं बन भी नहीं पाया. Eventually, when I had to start work again, I could not start it. There was so resistance, so much resistance. I used to hate coaching industry like anything. मुझे लगता था ये क्या नौकरी हुई, हम तो कुछ बड़ा काम करने के लिए आए. But who knew that I'm going to end up here? है. तो eventually, when all this high thinking was settled down, फिर मुझे लगा कि इतना भी परेशान क्यों हो रहे हैं. When I got my first job, when I used to work with Rao's IAS, you won't believe me when I asked my friends कि क्या पैसा मांगना चाहिए, उन्होंने बोला पैसा मांगना ही नहीं चाहिए तुझे. मैंने कहा क्यों? बोला अभी इस लायक ही नहीं. मैंने कहा ये क्या बात हुई? तो उन्होंने बोला यार कि अभी सबसे पहले काम करना सीखो पहले जाके. बोले पहले होता ना कि बड़ी यू हैव नॉट वर्क फॉर सो लॉन्ग. It's like a nursery. It's like a baby step that you're going to take. And I had so much resistance कि यार ये थोड़ी करूंगा, यार ये कोई काम होता है क्या, मैं ये नहीं करूंगा. वो 50 फंडे होते हैं आपके दिमाग में, यार ये थोड़ी होता है, ये कोई काम होता है क्या, मेरे से थोड़ी हो पाएगा. उन्होंने बोला कि वी आर गोइंग टू मेक यूट्यूब न्यूज एनालिसिस. मैंने बोला एक तो फेल होगा, ऊपर से हमारा चेहरा और दिखाएंगे. ये कैसी दुविधा है. हमें लगता था ना यूट्यूब पे तो वो आदमी आता है जो सक्सेसफुल होता है. ये परसेप्शन था. टीवी पे कौन आता था बचपन में? यही आता था, मोदी जी आते थे. मतलब हमारे बचपन में मोदी जी नहीं आते थे, कोई और अब लोग आते थे. है पॉइंट? तो दिस यूज्ड टू बी द केस। तो 2-3 बार उन्होंने इंटरव्यू के लिए बुलाया कि इधर आओ, फिर हम ये करेंगे, यू सेंड एन असाइनमेंट और सब कुछ करा। तो फाइनली दोस्तों का कहना है, मैंने कहा चलो कर लेते हैं, चले जाते हैं। तो जब मैं पहली बार इंटरव्यू देने पहुंचा तो उनका ऑफिस बहुत ही जबरदस्त था। 12 खंबा रोड पे ऑफिस था। बहुत दिनों बाद एक अच्छी जगह में गया था। तो बाकी तो इधर उधर खाना पीने जाते थे, वहां देख लेते थे कुछ कुछ, लेकिन कमरे में रह रहे राजेंद्र नगर में, और कभी ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइज जगह गए नहीं। तो जब मैं गया तो ही मेड मी वेट फॉर 6 आवर्स देयर। 6 घंटे मैंने वेट किया। 2 बजे में पहुंच गया दिन में। मैं भी जाके बैठ गया। मैंने कहा ऑफिस तो ठीक ही लग रहा है, ठंडा ठंडा मौसम है, एसी चल रहा है आराम से। चाय भैया पिला रहे थे, 2-3 बार पिला दी उन्होंने। तो मुझे लगा ठीक है, वी आर गोइंग टू सर्वाइव, आराम से, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। तो मुझे लगा यार कि ये कुछ भी पैसा दे, कम से कम मेरा जो रूम पे एसी का खर्चा हो रहा है वो तो बच जाएगा ना। आई स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग सो सिंपली। और मैंने कहा चाय भी ये पिला देगा, वो भी बहुत बड़ा खर्चा है, क्योंकि 20,000 रुपये खर्चा होता था महीने का, और क्या उस टाइम पे यही खर्चा था, 10,000 रुपये रूम का रेंट, और बाकी जो भी पेरिफेरल खर्चे हैं, और बाकी जो भी खर्चे होते थे वो दोस्त करवा देते थे जो पैसे कमा रहे होते थे। So then I started thinking this thing, and when I went there, and then finally things got finalized. My boss asked me कि you come from 2nd of April. मैं बोला फर्स्ट से आना, मैंने कहा अप्रैल फुल हो जाऊंगा, सेकंड से आता हूँ। So I went to work on 2nd of April, and you won't believe I never asked him the salary. कोई बहुत ग्लोरिफिकेशन वाली बात नहीं, लेकिन मैं इतना परेशान हो गया था इस सब बातों से, मुझे लगा कि नहीं यार, आई वोंट आस्क फॉर द सैलरी। मैं गया, 10-20 दिन काम करा। ऑलरेडी बहुत इस तरह के एनवायरनमेंट में आने में ही अपने आप में अच्छा फील हो रहा था कि यार एक ऑर्गेनाइज जगह है जहाँ बैठते हैं और जहाँ आप काम कर रहे हो, कुछ कुछ कर रहे हो। इट वॉज फीलिंग सो गुड। ठीक है, स्टार्टेड वर्किंग। 10-20 दिन निकले, फिर एक साथ वाले ने बोला भाई ऐसे नहीं होता, पैसे पूछ लेने चाहिए। मैंने बोला अच्छा हाँ ये बात तो है यार, काम करते हैं तो पैसे तो मिलने चाहिए। तो 20 दिन बाद में गया कि मैंने पूछा क्या सैलरी होगी। तो अगले को ही लगा यार कि एकदम इसको चिंता हो गई है। तो पूरी कहानी सुनाई, वी आर प्लानिंग बिग थिंग्स, ये वो फलाना टिनका, बड़ी बड़ी बातें, सब कुछ। मैंने वो लगाया, पता नहीं क्या बोलेगा यार ये। फिर से बोला वी आर गोइंग टू गिव यू 50,000 रुपीज। और मेरे मन में लड्डू फूट रहे। मैंने कहा 20,000 रुपए का मेरा टारगेट था और ये 50,000 रुपए दे देगा, मजे ही आ जाएंगे अब। So when you complicate things, things tend to become complicated. And when you think very simply from a survival perspective, things become so easy. कि मुझे क्या चाहिए, ये चाहिए, अच्छा ठीक मिल गया मुझे, खत्म बात है कि नहीं। 10 साल बाद मैंने नौकरी पकड़ी, फिर उसी तनख्वाह पे जितनी मुझे 2011 मिल रही थी, 10 के ऑलमोस्ट 7-8 साल बाद। तो कुछ दोस्त हमारे बोलते थे इट वॉज अ लॉस्ट डेकेड। ठीक है, so you see we are here, we are survival experts. There is no philosophy that can give you peace other than the survival strategy. If you are able to survive, you are good enough. बाकी सब बातें हैं कि और अचीवमेंट कर लो और बहुत आगे बढ़ जाओ और इसको ये कर दो वो कर दो, करो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, पर परेशान मत हो उससे। Getting my point? And eventually if it is about survival, things are going to become easy. You will have clarity in thinking on things. And I'm not saying it is easy for any one of us. It is difficult for almost every one of us, but this is how you have to act in certain situations, right? So that you see is that culture is a part of survival strategy. That is what I was emphasizing here. Culture has been created to facilitate us, not to become a barrier for us. It has become a mental barrier for so many people here. Getting my point? Then see, culture is the learned behavior. If you have learned something wrong, you can also unlearn this. Keep this thing in mind. If you have learned something which you feel you are uncomfortable with, and if you are behaving in a particular fashion, always keep this thing in mind. This behavior is a learned behavior. It is not instinctive, it is not biological, it is not genetic. होता है ना, कई बार हम अपने बिहेवियर को फेट मान लेते हैं कि अरे यार मेरा ऐसे ही है, मेरे को बहुत ऐसा हो जाता है. It is not fate, it is learned behavior. It is something that you have acquired by being born in that society through your experiences around with the people around you. So it's a very powerful thing that you actually have learned so many things and you can actually unlearn those things and again relearn things. अगर आप वो खुद से नहीं कर पाते और कई बार आपके बिहेवियर लिमिट के बाहर चले जाते हैं, तो then society makes you relearn by sending you to jail. है Why do they send you to jail? Of course, there is some level of retribution or punishment that is involved. But another feature is what? Another feature, another important aspect of this idea is that actually what happens in this case? They want you to re-socialize, to unlearn what you did in the past, to relearn, have remorse, and then enter as a fit member of the society. यही तो होता है जेल का पर्पस. कुछ और होता है, right? You have something called as total institutions, a concept provided by Erving Goffman, which is important, which is one of the questions that was asked in the previous year in anthropology itself, in the topic of society. There is one which is called a society, concept of society, concept of culture. In society, there is social institutions. So Erving Goffman's total institutions what are? Total institutions are what? They are actually there for re-socialization of the individuals. What exactly happens there? Humans are re-socialized into things. So just keep this thing in mind that we can actually learn so many things. At the same time, we can unlearn also and then relearn also. Hey, baat ki nahi hai? Nothing should become a barrier for us in that sense, right? So see, culture is learned behavior. Important thing is it is transmitted from person to person. It is a complex human characteristic that facilitates what? Our survival by enabling us to adapt to different settings. Material culture is the part of culture that is expressed as objects that humans use to manipulate their environments. Why? Because it's a tool. Material culture are basically what? Part of the tools that you use. For example, hammers and nails are what? Forms of material culture that enable us to do what? Make cabinets, tables, countless other forms of material culture. The other three attributes of humanness are hunting, speech, and dependence on domesticated animals and foods. But these appeared much later in the human evolution. Bipedalism, non-hooning, chewing complex, and complex material culture and tool use began earlier. Hunting refers to the social behavior. यहाँ पे hunting हम individual की नहीं कर रहे हैं. Whereby a group, adult men in general, organize themselves to pursue animals for food. Right? This behavior likely dates back to 1 million or more years ago. Some non-human primates organize themselves to pursue the prey, but they do not use tools or travel long distance as humans distinctively do when they hunt. Humans cooperate at the same time. They use what? Tools. A spear or a bow and arrow or a tool, anything they can use, or a gun today. Right? Everything that you see today is actually part of what? The material culture that we use, right? It's a kind of tool that we are seeing here. Speech, an equally distinctive human behavior is speech. We are the only animal that communicates by talking. We don't communicate simply by sounds. We communicate by talking to each other. और कभी कभी आपको तो बहुत सिंपल बात बोलनी होती है, उसको पूरा घुमा फिरा के बड़ा चढ़ा के सब यूं करके फिर बोलते हैं, तब समझ में आती है. हाँ, that's being human. है नहीं? नहीं. This is how we do it. पूरा उसको elaborate करके, stretch करके, है? किसी को propose करना हो, देखो कितना आदमी घुमा घुमा बात करता है. मैंने उस दिन ये सोचा, फिर ये हुआ, फिर ऐसा लगा, फिर वो हुआ, फलाना ढिमका, ये वो, 1 लाख तरह की बातें करेगा आदमी. Dogs may be talking in their language that we don't understand. इस लेवल पे abstract नहीं जाना है. फिर एलियन थ्योरी में पहुंच जाएंगे कि क्या एलियन है या नहीं है, कि जस्ट हमने नहीं देखा तो इसका मतलब जरूरी थोड़ी एलियन ना हो. भगवान है या नहीं है, हमने नहीं देखा तो इसका मतलब ये थोड़ी भगवान ना हो. है? I'm not denying the fact that other animals do not communicate. They communicate, right? And we have scientific evidence for that. Parrots are imitators. They just can imitate those sounds, but they don't mean anything. Parrot आपको गाली निकाल रहा है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं वो मीन करता है इस बात, उसने सीख ली कहीं से. पैरट इज जस्ट एन इमिटेटर. ऐसे तो फिर हस्की भी बोलता है. हस्की की वीडियोस देखना बोलने वाले हैं. बस वो जस्ट द साउंड्स वेरी सिमिलर टू द वे इन विच वी स्पीक. Right? And their brain actually tells us which part of their brain is developed. Is it even capable of language making and speech or not? जैसे the members of the order primate, the early ones like prosimians, if you see other mammals and compare the humans with those mammals or the members who are part of the order primate, one of the things that you would observe in those mammals is they rely more on sense of smell. Humans don't rely much on sense of smell. Our sense of smell is pretty weak as compared to other animals. Right? So olfactory bulb, which is one of the components of the brain, it gets shrinked in humans and other apes which are there. होता है? ह्यूमन में कैसे करके सूंघने नहीं घूमने लग जाता है कि क्या मिलना है. जैसे देख लेगा आंख से, आंख है उसके पास. और एक फीचर बताता हूं, ह्यूमन की आंख देखोगे दे आर फॉरवर्ड ओरिएंटेड, बाकी सबकी आंखें दोनों इस साइड में लगी रहती है. कितनी सिंपल सी बात है, कभी ऑब्जर्व ही नहीं करी किसी ने. कुत्ते की दोनों आंखें साइड में, गाय की दोनों आंखें साइड में हमारे सामने. हाउ डज दिस हेल्प? क्या बड़ी बात हो गई इससे? हाँ, मतलब ये भी एक रीजन है. और पीछे आंख भी मार सकते हैं. Actually, both of our eyes, when they are forward oriented, they create an image on the retina, which gives us the ability to have depth perception. And this is a distinctive feature of the primates. They have depth perception. कितना गहरा है, कितना वैसा है. Why? Because the early primates were living on trees. Monkey used to live on tree only. है? और एक ब्रांच से दूसरी ब्रांच पे जंप करेगा, डेप्थ पता नहीं हो, गिर जाएगा नीचे. होता है? You just try to close one of your eyes, और आपको लगेगा अब कहां जाऊं. ये आपको डिस्टेंस कम लगेगा, ज्यादा लगेगा, बराबर नहीं लगेगा. है? बाइनोक्युलर विजन बोलते हैं इसको, स्टीरियोस्कोपिक विजन. We have depth perception. We see things in colored fashion. Okay? So we have very different way of observing the world around ourselves, and we have very different way of communicating. Other animals also communicate, but through certain sounds that they make. For example, dogs are inevitably saying the same word, bhav. They don't even have any rhythm, ups and downs, pitch, anything. But they would just make two different kinds of sounds. Broadly, it would remain the same. Right? So it is their way of communicating. The meaning that we attach to that is our meaning. It is not their meaning. है? जैसे मान लो कि ठंड की रात में कुत्ता कर रहा है बैठ के, आप कह रहे हो उसको भूत दिखता है. अरे वो तुम्हें दिखता है, उसको नहीं दिखता है. वो तुम्हारे दिमाग की उपज है. क्या? हाँ, तो हम भी चिल्लाएंगे दब जाए. है फैक्ट की नहीं है? उसको ठंडी लग रही होगी, वो कुछ कर रहा होगा, या पता नहीं क्या होगा, जो भी होगा. हम उसको जबरदस्ती स्वेटर पहना देते हैं बेचारे को, उसको खुजली होने लगती है. अभी एक वीडियो आया था, उसमें फुटबॉल वर्ल्ड कप में ब्राजील के लोग सपोर्टर्स बैठे हुए थे, उन्होंने कुत्ते को ब्राजीलियन जर्सी पे डाल रखी, वो इधर उधर देख रहा है, वेरी फनी। ठीक है, so there are so many such things we are going to study later on, but we need to introduce ourselves slowly and steadily into this zone in this direction, right? So know this thing. Unfortunately, for research purposes, reading and listening technology was not invented. It was invented only about a century ago. For information about long past speech, anthropologists rely on what? Indirect evidences within the skeleton. So presence of hyoid bone is one such indirect evidence in that direction. For example, the hyoid bone in the neck is the part of the vocal structure that helps produce words. The unique appearance of the human hyoid helps the anthropologists conjecture about the origins of what? Speech. When you look at domestication, the most recently developed unique behavior is the domestication in which we acquire food. And I've already told you how domestication began. Before that, there was Mesolithic. New plants, animals started to appear. We started to domesticate those animals as well as plants. हम plants को भी बोलते हैं कि we domesticated them. Why? Because they used to grow in wild. And then we picked and used them and we grew them. Hey? So in a way, those plants that humans selected, they are far more present on this planet Earth. Or those variants of the plants. Human beings were actually acting like agents of natural selection. In the plants that were available in the wild, they also had variations. Some of them had a very sturdy portion where the seeds would grow. Some of that had fragile. The fragile वाला तो हम लेके आ ही नहीं पाएंगे क्योंकि सारे बीज गिर जाएंगे वहीं पे. So only the sturdy varieties could be brought. We started growing them repeatedly again and again. So only those became more proliferated. So in a way, humans, when they've started domesticating the plants and animals, actually they have transformed the whole biodiversity of the planet Earth. Most of the original biodiversity has been lost because of human intervention. आज तो हम कर ही रहे हैं, हमने 10,000 साल पहले inevitably कर दिया, जाने बिना, अनजाने में. Right? For example, the sheep and the goat that you see today, their horns are pretty small or they're almost lost. But if you see their wild varieties, they will be having bigger horns. Okay, getting my point? So what we see is domestication, and there are so many consequences of domestication. Domestication led to what? Settling down, rural communities, the whole rural society. जो हम social culture में पढ़ते हैं वो सारा यहीं से आती है. What are the features of the rural society? The peasant societies, then folk, urban continuum, all these things are part of this only. Right? So beginning about 10,000 years ago or before present, humans began to raise animals and grow the plants. This development led to our current reliance on domesticated species. This reliance has had a profound impact on human biology and behavior. Human beings' unique behavior and survival mechanisms and anatomical features related to them arose through complex interactions of what? Biology and culture. And we say what? That is why anthropology is considered as what? A biocultural science. Anthropology is considered as a biocultural science for this very purpose. Indeed, our ancestors' increasing dependence on culture for survival has made us entirely what? Today we are entirely culture dependent for survival. Today it would be really difficult for a human being to go and survive in the jungle if he does not take with himself these tools or culture. Okay? But human beings have the possibility of adapting, they can adapt. And I've already shown you these pictures. Bipedalism, walking on two limbs, right? Upright posture, non-honing chewing complex, hyoid bone, right? Which is different from the non-honing chewing complex is different from the honing chewing complex, right? All the other animals use noises and calls to communicate basic ideas. Only humans can speak through speech, express complex thoughts and ideas. The shape of hyoid bone is unique to the hominids, and reflect their ability to speak. We are going to see that classification. Right? Bipedal two-footed gait. Gait क्या होता है? Walking style. So gait बोलते हैं. ठीक है? I hope this is clear to everyone. What about honing chewing complex? Humans' non-honing chewing complex lacks what? Large projecting canines in the upper jaw and a diastema or a gap between the lower canine and the first premolar. The chewing complex of the apes, such as gorillas, has large projecting upper canines and a diastema in the lower jaw to accommodate there, where it gets what? Sharpened. Humans' production of use of stone tools is one of the examples of complex material culture. The tools of our closest living relative, chimpanzees, do not approach the complexity and diversity of the modern ancestral humans. Apes have started making tools, पर उतनी बड़ी बात नहीं है. Humans' relatively large brain requires a lot of energy to develop and function. Animal protein is an ideal source of that energy. And humans obtain it by eating animals they hunt. To increase their chance of success in hunting, humans often employ tools and cooperative strategies. Humans domesticate wide variety of plants and controlling their life cycles, etc. Okay? Tomorrow we are going to start with biological evolution as the topic. Do read this handout beforehand so that I can further simplify things for you in tomorrow's class. Okay? I'll share the handout online. It will be available offline also tomorrow. Okay? In a printed format.
StudyIQ IAS. आपका सिलेक्शन हमारा मिशन.